Okay, we're on a bit of a roll. I'm just going to keep going here. The next thing that I wanted to cover is basically inserting figures into your document. So in most technical documents, we want to put in a series of figures and tables and things like that. And you deal with figures and tables in exactly the same way, just as two different sequences. So we want to do that in a way that, again, is going to facilitate editing after. If we change the order of them, if we change where they're referenced, that type of thing, we want them to update themselves and maintain their formatting appropriate to where they are in the document. So let's do that. Let's insert some figures. And with those figures inserted, we're also going to go back just behind our contents, and we're going to insert a list of figures, which is a common requirement in a technical document. Okay, so this is our fancy document that we're building up. We're working on our table of contents. So we're going to jump in. I'm going to slide down a little bit deeper into the document, maybe go down to what I've got shown as table 2 or chapter 2, and we're going to insert a figure, a caption for that figure, and with the caption then, of course, in a technical document, it's appropriate that you refer to the figure. If you're going to put in a figure, you don't just have it sitting out there all on its own. So we're going to do that. We're going to put in a cross-reference to that figure, and we'll put in a couple of those so that we can move them around and see how the editing is facilitated by the effort of doing it properly. So I'm just going to make myself some space here on the document. I'll add in a paragraph, not worried about the formatting or the style of that paragraph yet. I'm going to just pop off to another program here, grab a figure, and we'll paste it in as an image. And because it's a little bit too large, it's gone onto the other page. I'm just going to shrink it down. So I have put it in as a picture. I do personally prefer to create my images in a separate document and to bring them in as a picture rather than in Word itself. It probably just built up over good or bad practice over the years. It's just the way I tend to do it. So here we have an image. It's now in there. Now you notice that it's in line with text. And for technical documents that are not, some journal papers and conference papers aside, where you may have to fit them into a column or something like that, you may want to get more complicated and have the text wrapping around it and things like that. But for a basic thesis or report, probably the easiest thing to do is to put it in line with text, one figure per line, and then to center that line and put the caption under it. So that's what the way we're going to set it up. So we have our figure, and now what we need to do is to make sure that the paragraph that is containing that figure is a style appropriate to that figure. So we're just going to do that. We probably want to center it. So to center it, we're going to get rid of our indent, go up to our Home tab, center it, and if we want to add space before or after, we can look at that once we have a caption, because it needs to be seen in conjunction with this caption to decide if that's what we want to do. So I think that's okay. So we just need to create that as a style, and we're going to call that one figure. Say okay. So now we have a style that contains that formatting, and we're going to apply that to any time we put a figure into the document. Okay, we can close that. So let's add a caption. If in a technical document, certainly when you put in a figure, you normally put in a caption to identify what the figure is, and it also gives us the ability to refer to it. So the best way to do that here, we're going to go up to References, and if you go along, you see we get to Insert Caption. So we're going to Insert Caption, and you have the opportunity to choose what it is that you're captioning: figure, table, equation, and so in this case it's a figure, so we're going to accept that. Now I can tell that I've been fiddling in here, so if we go into the numbering scheme just to see what I've done, is I said, yeah, I want to include the chapter number, because our chapters are determined by the headings. quite often you want to have the equation show up with the chapter number ahead of it. So I've said include chapter number. By default, I think it's turned off, so that would have been like that. You can choose what the separator is. Let's say period, and formatting, and it asks you which heading is the chapter lead. So in this case, it's heading 1. And so we can say OK to that. And what we want to do is we want to type in our caption itself. So what is this? This is just it's a sample problem. Sample problem for combined loading. There we go, and we say OK, and you see it puts in, it normally should put it on the line right under it, but we've inserted the line, so that means we have to make sure that that style didn't change. That is our figure, and this is going to be our caption style, but let's make sure that it's doing what we want it to do. So common for us, let's center that. Because we built that up on the normal paragraph style, it's already got the space between them, so that's good. That looks good. Let's get rid of the special coloring, so we'll go to our automatic coloring. Now, by default, it's offering an italicized. We can keep that, not keep that. That's fine. So there we go. I think that's looking fairly decent. And so what I need to do is I need to go up, drop this down, find my caption style, and update to match selection. And now I have the style the way I want it for the caption for the figure. So I've got a figure put in. It's in its own container, its own style for figures, and it's got a caption with a caption style. So if you're putting a figure into a document, as we said before, you need to cross-reference it. So you normally would cross-reference or refer to a figure before the figure itself shows up. So let's go to the paragraph before that, and let's say, okay, as shown in figure 1, or in this case, as shown in figure 2.1. So we go as shown in, but rather than type out figure 2.1, because that could change as we edit the document, let's make what they call a cross-reference. And so we're going to go references, and you go through here and you see right beside caption is cross-reference. So let's check that. And you can, depending on what you're cross-referencing, tables, figures, equations, footnotes, you name it. So we're looking at figures. We don't want the entire caption. Normally you only put the label and the number in there. Again, you can use it as a hyperlink. That's great. And this is where you would choose, if we had a whole bunch of figures and cross-references in here, you would choose which one you're cross-referencing to. In this case, we only have one, so it's already chosen. And let's hit insert, and we get what we were hoping to get. Sorry, I'm just going to put in my sentence, put a space, and so we have a cross-reference as shown in figure 2.1, which is down here. So I'm just going to pause things just for a little bit. I'm going to put in at least one more figure and it's cross-referenced so that we can see what happens when we edit it and move it around, and then we're going to create a list of figures to go with it. Okay, so during that short little pause, I just scrolled down later in the chapter. I've put in another figure, made it different just so we could see the differences. It has its own caption and its own cross-reference. As you would expect. So they're numbered in sequence as they're showed up, and they're referred to in sequence as they show up, as we would expect. So the important thing is now is this is editable. And so what I want to show you is what happens, or why this is of benefit if we move the document around, because as you're going through the editing process, your colleagues and or supervisor may want you to say, oh no, put that section up in front of the other section, and what it would do is it causes all of those numbers to change because they have to show up in order. And now if you've done them manually, you're going to have to go in and change them all manually and hopefully not miss any. And they're always missed. As a reviewer of documents, I tell you they're always missed. As well as the references to them have to be updated. So if we've done this right, it should all happen automatically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the entire section 2.1.1, and let's say my supervisor says, no, we want to move that. We want to move it up. So I'm going to cut it out of here, and I'm going to go ahead of 2.1. And whoop, just a minute. I'm going to go right here, and I'm going to paste it in. So I now have my literature, and then my experimental program, and okay, so you see that the numbers haven't updated themselves. That's normal, as we saw with the table of contents. They're fields, so they don't update themselves until certain circumstances occur, or we tell them to update themselves. So let's just keep this. So this is now, if we're going to do it in this order, this is going to become a heading 2. And as we go down here, let's assume that experimental program is also a heading 2. Okay, that seems to make a lot of sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select the entire document, Control A, and I'm going to hit my F9 key. And it's going to ask me if I wanted to update just the numbers or the entire table. I'm going to do the table as well because I want the table of contents to be updated. So update the entire table. I hit OK. You probably saw as we did that these numbers updated themselves. If I roll up, they've updated themselves. They're now in order and referring to themselves. And of course, the headings themselves have updated because we turned those, or flipped those around. So if we go up to our table of contents, we notice that our table of contents has been updated to reflect the change in here. And we don't see our figures because we don't have figures in there. The captions don't show up in the table of contents, which is appropriate. What we do want to do is we want to enter a list of figures. So let's do that now. Typically, we'd want that on a new page. So I'm going to go Control Enter just to force a new page. So I've got the table of contents. I'm going to go Control Enter again to enter a couple of page breaks. We've got our table of contents on the first page. Let's put a list of figures on this page. And what did we have that? We had that as heading 5, I think, is what we were using before for the table of contents. So we'll choose that again. And now we're going to go to our references and we're going to say insert table of figures. And it's going to give us an example. There we go. It's using the dots, same as we did before. Obviously, you're going to choose style comparative to what you're doing in your table of contents. The caption label is for figures, which is what we're interested in. And I think we've pretty much got it. So let's hit OK. And there we go. It identifies our two figures that we have, what pages they're on, and now we have an updatable list of figures, much like the table of contents. So our document's starting to come together. We've got a table of contents, which seems to be working. We've got a list of figures, which is certainly working, all based on heading styles and now captions and cross-references. So really effective, very helpful to do. It is a bit more effort to do it correctly at the outset to make those cross-reference links, but boy, is it going to save you a lot of little errors or final editing later on if you've done that as people shift things around and remove content and add content. So this is great, and I hope it is helpful to you.